Hello there, welcome back to my channel. I'm Chioma Naomi and I'm so happy that you're here. We'll be talking about how astrology is not something to believe in. Astrology is not a belief system. It's practically a science. And I use the term practically for a reason. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how astrology changed my life and what it's done for me, the insight it's provided. This might ruffle some feathers, but I've committed to speaking my truth and being open about the things that I'm interested in. Also, a couple of my future videos wouldn't make sense without this video. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's get started. There's a lot to talk about how astrology and the belief in celestial bodies, etc., can make someone woo-woo, out of touch with reality, or maybe even lacking intelligence. But I'm not here to explain astrology to you today, right? I'm just here to offer some perspective and a different angle, and really just to share my experience with astrology to hopefully just give you something to think about, okay? But I'm not here to persuade you. By all means, do what you want. I saw a TikTok of a creator was pretty much talking about the same topic, and I've always felt like this, but it was really reassuring to hear someone else say it. I'll link the TikTok. I might even insert it into this video. It really got me thinking and wanting to address this, especially amongst the Black community. Hello, my friends, but this video is not specifically for the Black community, but with African Americans in general. Astrology is thought about something to even be demonic in some cases. And then if we especially look at Black Christianity, that's a lot of how it's described, right? There's no real bridge between the two. It's like if you do these things, you are not of God. And for one, there's so many rules. We'll get into that later. But this video is just meant to give some context and some basis for some of my upcoming videos, okay? So at the baseline, astrology is literally correlational research. It is correlational study, right? How things exist in relation to another. We're seeing how when one certain thing happens in one domain, this is also happening in another domain. But if you are at all familiar with science, correlation does not equal what? Causation. So because two things are correlating, that does not mean one is causing the other. Just because Saturn is conjunct the sun doesn't mean that that is making these things happen on Earth. We're still human, we still have free will. But it's just saying like, when this is happening up here, this tends to happen down here, but not this causing that. And it's just a documented and recorded form of observational research. People are observing what is happening and like, oh, these things correlate with another. Now, granted, they're not experimental and they're not empirical because we're not conducting studies with astrology, right? We're not manipulating any independent variables. And for all my scientists out there, especially those that are interested in psychology, you guys are probably familiar with this. In your research methods classes, you probably are talking about things like, manipulating independent variables. So that's not what's happening with astrology, right? But we are merely able to observe, track, and notate how things correlate with each other. And when we get into the logic of things, we can acknowledge that, the moon governs the tides, right? And we're all affected by the laws of gravity, for instance. So if these planets have a gravitational pull as well and operate within our same solar system, and the closer they are to us, the stronger that gravitational pull is, right? Because we are not the only things in the solar system. We are governed by the moon, which controls the tides, the phases of the moon. The gravitational pull of how close the moon is to Earth is what controls our water networks. Wouldn't these other celestial bodies have an effect on us as well when they also have a gravitational pull? This is actual science. Wouldn't those things have an effect? The further those planets are, they would have a lesser effect on us here on Earth. By that logic, okay? So we can say, hey, maybe these external bodies have some type of effect on what is happening down here too. They aren't controlling anything, but people might respond to this gravitational pull in a variety of ways. There is some mythology and storyline that comes to play when we get into like the planets and their symbolism and what each planet is symbolized to mean based on the study of these planets for literally years, because astrology is older than religion. But it does not take a scientist to see that the planets are not gods, right? Or figures people worship. And that's the part that gets confused. I feel like, especially when we're talking to religious folk, they get like, oh, y'all are out here worshiping the devil. It's like, no one's worshiping anything. We're just observing, literally looking at correlational things. And at one point, religion, a lot of times were rejecting of science at one point, right? Doesn't this look rather similar to that? Rejecting things that are unfamiliar to us, which granted is natural, right? We're human, so we're going to go towards things that we are familiar with, that we can predict, that are comfortable for us, and resist the things that we don't know about because it challenges who we are. I get it, honestly. And for ages, astrology was actually taught at the university level, right? And naturally incorporated into parts of cultures worldwide, and actually still is. Actually, kind of verbatim saying what this other TikTok creator said. Please, I obviously these thoughts are my own, but definitely inspired by this person. Want to give them credit. I don't know her at right now, but I'm gonna make sure I edit it in. The idea that we are distinctly separate and nothing outside of us is affecting what we have going on down here is wildly self-important. That's the first. It's wildly self-important, kind of outright cocky to think that, oh yeah, we have this much power, right? To say that we are on earth and we are the only people that have the power to affect what happens here. To think that actually supersedes even thinking the presence of a God or the presence of outside forces. We are not the supreme beings. We can become supreme within ourselves and do the best that we can, but to think that we are the most important is actually crazy. It's literally insane. We already coexist with so many other animals and life forces. And granted, we've taken over this life sphere here on Earth. However, we aren't the only species here, right? And because we have more developed brains and can do research and study, and we're a part of the main species, let's say, or the overarching species, there kind of comes a little bit of ego that comes with that. And I just think it's interesting. For one, we haven't been to those other planets. We've seen pictures, but we don't know what's going on there. Let me stop getting on a tangent. But it's actually very close-minded to think that what's going on here is completely separate from everything else that's going on around us. However, the validity in astrology does get lost in generalizing in this new wave of pop astrology that has surfaced into like mainstream media, things of the sort. People learn astrology for like half a minute and they start putting themselves into a place where they are speaking with authority or trying to speak with authority on it. Social media has kind of given us a huge rise in false prophets anyway. They've become so much harder to identify like who is the real knowledgeable person or the real knowledgeable studier. Like we don't know who those people are out front anymore. Because social media has given anyone a platform. If you decide you want to continue to make videos, even me, I'm just out here able to put up a camera and a ring light and start recording. I can create a platform for myself, right? So we're in a very distinct day and age where people can kind of just say whatever with no backing. Granted, I want to say I am a real studier, but I'm not even marketing myself as an astrologer. I'm just a person. Really an astrology enthusiast. However, you can feel it though. Like with time and like observing different things, you can start to see like, okay, this person isn't all that knowledgeable, especially if you know things yourself. You're able to clock like, oh, this person's not telling the truth, or this person isn't moving with authenticity. They're after some other motive, some other thing. That becomes evident. You can feel when someone has truly studied and committed themselves to go deep into the knowledge and to understand and to research and to just connect to the information. You can feel that there's a level of like calm in the spirit, even like when listening to them. And I think that's something to note. Christians will call it the devil. Haters will say it's Photoshop. And being raised a Christian myself, like it was so hard for me to grapple with the fact that astrology found me. Literally, astrology found me. I felt like I was a bad person for having an interest in it. And it was really condemning. This knowledge that found me, I did not go seeking out. People around me, literally in my workplace, were talking about it. And I was just curious and looked it up myself because we critical think around here. It's deeply damaging to the soul and the self to deny and suppress the parts of yourself that you know are there, and actually aids in harboring a shame, which I'll be talking about a couple videos from now. In that way, it leaves you completely afraid to be yourself. And originally, astrology was something that was meant to be gate kept, like meant to be understood and known by a select few. Everyone wasn't meant to have access to it, just because it can create this type of mental rose-colored glass that can come over your mind if you really don't have the depth and devotion to understand it. Just like in religion, in all religious texts, can be taken out of context and not used for the true meaning of what they are designed to do. It's similar, although astrology is not something to believe in. I am doubling down on that. It's just something to observe. You become rejecting of things that feel natural to you is so uncomfortable. And shame culture is already a huge thing in the United States. Like we kind of operate on shame and like this fear of embarrassment, where in a lot of other places that doesn't really exist. I don't want to say it doesn't exist, but it doesn't exist to the same degree. Essentially, you know, letting some other thing outside of you decide how you live your life is giving so many other people who are actually now dead by the way, the people that wrote a lot of these texts, more dominion over your life than you have over your own life. And in a way, this is actually going to be triggering for a lot of people. That's like a cop out. That's a cop out and a scapegoat because you're not thinking for yourself. Religion can sometimes keep us from critical thinking in a lot of ways and expanding the mind. It uses fear as a sense of control indirectly. We fear doing anything wrong because we fear going to hell or whatever happens after, right? Being punished. When in reality, it only makes us more sneaky, less honest, and more shameful. I'm sure there are so many of us that know someone who looks like this perfect image in whatever religion they occupy, but then behind the scenes, they're the ones doing sneaky things because this part of themselves is not integrated into their identity. They've pushed it far away and put an arm's length to it. So then once they participate in that shadow version of themselves, they feel the shame now. And then they're like, I need to repent. And it's because someone has told them that this version of them is wrong. And that can extend towards anything, right? We were talking about astrology, but I think we're getting a little deeper here. And I love that for us. But essentially, we feel like we have to be something other than who we really are to be accepted, to be appreciated, to be loved, right? Although most religion teaches us that we are not perfect, it actually creates this wound of perfection within that leaves us so disappointed and disjointed with ourselves when we do not amount to those things, right? When we do not amount to this perfect view of what a Christian or a Hindu or a Muslim or a Jew should be, right? When we don't amount to those things, it creates this immense level of shame within us. And that's problematic in itself. Sometimes lead to a negative self-talk and a negative way of viewing the self and a subpar way of experiencing the self. You're not expanding. You're not exploring parts of your identity. You're actually thwarted and suppressed because of the way that we're seeing things. It keeps us from finding the answers that are already within us. The kingdom of heaven is in you. Literally a Bible verse. The kingdom of heaven is in you. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. So if the kingdom of heaven is within me and within us, within you, I should look to seek myself first, to dive into knowing myself and getting acquainted with myself as deeply as possible. And I'm to meet God there. I'm supposed to get closer to myself so that I might find God, so that I can align more closely to the divine. And I'm not going to pick and choose ways to use religion to support us, but there's a lot of stuff that I feel like we have to acknowledge in order to move forward as a community, as a people in general, for us to move forward and to really engage in the most optimum form of human experience. And not even to say that I found it, by no means, but just the pondering, asking questions. Keep your religion. I'm not telling you religion is bad. Keep it, but keep it for the reasons of your own, not out of fear, not out of shame, not out of avoidance of the unknown. There's a difference when you're able to embrace this and feel like, wow, I finally found something that resonates with me and who I am, and a doctrine that I'm able to abide by. That's beautiful. That's genuine. I would say, if anything causes you to keep your mind from questioning, keep your mind from expanding, that thing deserves to be questioned even more. But back to the main point, if the kingdom of heaven is within me and I'm supposed to seek the kingdom of heaven first, that's within me, to get closer to God, right? So I'm supposed to be seeking myself to more closely connect to God so that I can feel my life aligned more divinely. So that is exactly what astrology did for me. It gave such a profound understanding of myself that I never even knew was possible. And now astrology doesn't have power, but observing astrology in relation to myself was very empowering. It allowed me to connect more deeply to the things that happened in my life and realize, like, oh, there was a purpose for these things, right? These things happened for some type of reason. It served as a tool to help me navigate my life with a lot more direction. And that is not to say without God, because I am someone who actually loves God and connects deeply to God and feel God around me, and I see God's hand in my life. And I feel like God gave me this tool to be able to understand those things. God, the higher power, the universe, however you identify it, source energy gave me astrology to help me understand myself better. Because where on earth would it come from? When I started studying astrology, it it was crazy how quickly like it all came to me. It was like I was supposed to know it. It was wild. Like, have you ever been a natural at something? I'm a natural dancer. Like choreography, movement, rhythm is something that has always come natural to me. And this isn't to toot my own horn, but it's just the easiest example I have access to. So like I actually started dancing really late in life. And when I would be in dance spaces, I would be able to pick up and hang with people that were dancing for a long time, right? That's just a natural thing that I was born with, okay? And a lot of people are born with natural gifts. And astrology was very much the same way. When I was introduced to it from this deeper perspective, the way everything just kind of like downloaded in my mind, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. How do I know all these things? Why does it feel like it's like knowledge I already knew, but just like had to remember? Felt like I was recalling something. To be able to understand it in a deep level helped me to understand myself on a deep level. But I had to confront that like shame demon first. I had to be like, oh my God, like, what does this mean? Like, does this mean I'm from the devil? Am I a bad person for knowing something that I've literally felt like I've always known? Am I a bad person? It was such a hard thing to confront. And I don't think that was necessary. Like, I really don't think it was necessary. It actually slowed me down a lot. Like I mentioned, like astrology is just meant to be used as a tool and actually help me find a huge sense of direction. And that is what most of us want, right? We are wanting a sense of understanding so that we know the path that we should take, right? And instead of guessing and spending so much time, so much of our lives like searching, we all have an astrological footprint that provides insight into who we are, literally at our time of our birth. The stars were doing something, and that chart is relative to you, right? It's connected to you. The day you were born is a very special day. I have other astrology videos that I made years ago that I might consider republishing just to like give some context, a little bit of information. Instead of searching and guessing, you have your own energy manual. And when you know how to harness and command your energy, it leads to more authentic living and better results just overall. Less shame, less resentment, less distraction, and just an overall clearer direction. The divine God, your higher power, gives us all gifts, as I was mentioning before. While some of us can see visions and hear voices and messages directly and can feel things intensely in our bodies and have the gift of authority or the gift of influence over others or the gift of foresight. And most of us all have more than one of these, by the way. Some of us have the gift of being able to interpret the stars. Like that is a gift, by the way, for those of you that needed that confirmation. Like God created the stars and the planets and all this stuff. So what do you mean studying it is bad? Studying God's creation is bad. People literally study agriculture and how the plants grow so that we can tend to the things so that we can feed ourselves, right? Why, just because something is out of our scope, like it's above us, we can't study that? It's literally just study observation so that we can live better. We let fear dictate the way that we see the world, keeping us restricted to only what we know and have known and enslaved to our patterns. So I challenge you, right? And not just with astrology, to just take the time to explore, right? Things that you feel like are a part of you, as long as they are not harmful to others, let those things shine. Let those things sing through. With a little bit of exploration, your beliefs will always be there. Confronting or experimenting or having understanding does not damage you, doesn't hurt you, doesn't take you farther away from God. Knowing, learning, understanding is a beautiful thing and a gift from God to have an innate divine understanding, to feel connected to God or your higher power and what is here for us to experience, enjoy, right? So take understanding and learning seriously. Take it seriously and make it a part of who you are. There are things out there that allow us to do that, that are meant to just be used as tools and not to necessarily predict the future, because we all have free will. A multitude of things can happen and work together to make any one event what it is. But there are patterns that you can observe, right? Just how we know that, oh, around this time of year, this is when the sun goes down a little bit later in the day. And then in the fall time, this is when the sun goes down a little bit earlier. We like to think that all these things just exist, but these are a result of studying, years and years and years of studying to bring us to the world that we are in today. So nothing is separate. We are all interconnected. Even outside of what we understand, we are still connected to those things. So I thank you for watching this video. And if it made you uncomfortable, I'm proud of you for sitting with it and getting to this point of the video, because it actually takes courage and it shows that you're just challenging yourself to embrace different perspectives and hear other perspectives. It only makes you stronger in your own. I applaud you for pushing yourself and to get to a place of understanding, even if it's something that you don't adopt for yourself. Even if astrology isn't the thing you want to investigate, knowing more should only make you more solidified in what you believe. And if it doesn't, it shows that you're smart, that you're willing to change your mind when presented with new information. So with that, I want to say thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment of your experience, even if it's controversial, if you like the video, if you don't like the video, if it made you uncomfortable, if you want to share a past experience, I'm here for it, okay? I post every Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 12 p.m. Mountain Time, 1 p.m. Central Time. Thank you so much, but until next time, bye for now.